You were never going to be enough for the life I'm building. Look at you. Exhausted, broken, poor. Do you really think I'm bringing you and your mediocrity into a $500 million future? I'd rather lose the kids than be seen with you. Those were the venomous words Kenneth Dowson spat at his wife the very night he signed the contract that would make him rich. No gratitude for the 7 years she worked 3 jobs to feed his dreams. No compassion for the woman who sacrificed everything. He cast her out like garbage, her work uniform still on her body, her dignity crushed under his contempt. She stood there trembling, her body weak from exhaustion, her heart bleeding with every word replaying in her mind. To him, she was nothing but a burden too heavy for his glittering new life. But fate has a way of turning mockery into mourning. 10 months later, the same man who had thrown her into the streets found himself standing before Congress, his lies exposed, federal agents approaching with handcuffs, while the woman he thought would never rise again sat calmly at the witness table with evidence that would destroy him on national television. This is the story of a devoted wife discarded in cruelty and the reckoning that left him in chains. And today, it is being retold by me. Hello, family. Welcome back. Before we begin, I have a small but heartfelt request. Please subscribe. Your support is what keeps these stories alive. Every time you click that button, you're helping us share voices that would otherwise be forgotten and stories that deserve to be heard. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Because together, we are not just telling stories. We are keeping hope alive. 7 years earlier, Laura and Kenneth sat on a sagging couch in their cramped 2-bedroom apartment, bills spread across the coffee table like accusations. Maya was 2, crying in the bedroom. Jordan was an infant, wailing in Laura's arms. Kenneth's startup had burned through their savings, and the eviction notice was taped to their door. Just 5 years, Kenneth said, his hand covering hers. 5 years of sacrifice, baby, and we'll have everything. The house, the security, everything we dreamed of. I promise. Laura looked at her babies, at her husband's desperate, hopeful eyes. We're a team, she whispered. Whatever it takes. The first job came easily. Hospital orderly, 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. The pay was barely minimum wage, but it covered daycare. Laura mopped floors, changed bedpans, and smiled through exhaustion while Kenneth pitched investors and built the vision. 6 months later, they were still drowning. Kenneth needed more capital. Laura added a second job, retail worker at Target, 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. She'd race from the hospital, grab stale coffee, and stock shelves until closing. She saw her children for 30 minutes at breakfast. Year 3, the bills multiplied. Kenneth's company needed just one more round of funding. Laura took the overnight shift at a 7-Eleven, 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. 3 jobs, 90-minute sleep intervals between shifts. She meal prepped at 4 in the morning while the world slept, her hands shaking as she packed Maya's lunch, kissed Jordan's forehead while he dreamed, and left before they woke. Kenneth started changing. New haircuts at expensive salons. Tailored suits he claimed were necessary for investor meetings. Business dinners where Laura was too exhausted to attend anyway. He stopped asking about her day, stopped noticing the weight falling off her frame or the dark circles carved under her eyes. In the back of their closet, Laura's culinary school certificate gathered dust. Laura's table, the small catering business she'd registered with such hope, existed only on paper now, abandoned like her dreams. She'd wanted to cook, to create, to build something beautiful. Instead, she scrubbed toilets, folded clothes, and rang up lottery tickets while drunk men leered at her through plexiglass. It's temporary, she whispered to herself during the 3 a.m. shift, stocking cigarettes with trembling fingers. We're building something together. It's temporary. Year 5 became year 6. Year 6 became 7. Maya turned 8. Jordan turned 6. They barely knew their mother anymore. Then Kenneth called, his voice electric with excitement. "Laura, I'm close. The big one. The $500 million infrastructure contract. It's happening. Just a few more months." Laura, standing in the hospital break room after a 12-hour shift, felt something break and rebuild inside her simultaneously. "Almost over. Almost free. I'll work harder," she heard herself say. "Whatever you need." That night, she picked up extra shifts at all 3 jobs. She stopped sleeping entirely. Her body ran on adrenaline and the promise that soon, so soon, the nightmare would end. She had no idea the real nightmare was just beginning. The call came at noon while Laura was emptying bedpans on the 3rd floor. Kenneth's name flashed on her cracked phone screen. "We got it," he said, his voice tight with barely contained triumph. "The $500 million contract. It's done, Laura. We won." Laura's knees buckled. She grabbed the wall, her vision blurring with tears. A passing nurse stopped, concerned, but Laura waved her off. "It's finally over," she whispered into the phone. "We made it. Kenneth, we actually made it." She did something she'd never done in 7 years. She left work early. Her supervisor protested, but Laura was already running to her car, her hospital scrubs still on, her heart pounding with relief and joy so fierce it felt like flying. At the grocery store, she bought everything for Kenneth's favorite meal: garlic butter steak, roasted vegetables, homemade rolls, the expensive wine he loved. Her credit card barely cleared, but it didn't matter now. Nothing mattered except celebrating the end of their nightmare. She cooked for 3 hours, her exhausted body moving on pure adrenaline and happiness. She set the table with the wedding china they'd never used, lit candles, even put on the dress Kenneth once said made her beautiful. She called Simone, the daycare provider who'd become her lifeline. "Can Maya and Jordan stay overnight? Kenneth and I need tonight. Please." Simone's voice was strange, hesitant. "Of course, Laura. Take all the time you need." Kenneth came home at midnight. Laura heard his key in the lock and stood, smoothing her dress, her smile so wide it hurt. The door opened. Kenneth walked in wearing a suit she'd never seen, his cologne unfamiliar and expensive. Behind him came a man in an even sharper suit, carrying a leather briefcase. Laura's smile faltered. "Kenneth? Who?" "This is Marcus Theft," Kenneth said flatly. "My attorney. We need to talk." The celebration dinner sat cold on the table between them as Marcus opened his briefcase and pulled out documents. "Heavy, official, final. Divorce papers," Kenneth said, sliding them across the table. "And a custody petition." Laura stared at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. "What? Kenneth, what is this?" "We won. You won. We can finally." "No," Kenneth interrupted, his voice ice. "I won. And I'm not dragging you into my future." Marcus began reading from the custody petition, his tone clinical and detached. "Laura Dowson is an absent and negligent mother who prioritizes work over her children's well-being, leaving them in the care of strangers for up to 18 hours per day. Evidence shows emotional instability, exhaustion-related incidents, and an inability to provide adequate parental care." "Stop." Laura's voice cracked. "I did this for us. I worked those jobs for you, so you could build your company. So we could." Kenneth's face twisted with disgust. "I never asked you to work yourself to death. That was your choice. And now I'm choosing differently. Look at you, Laura. You're exhausted, broken, poor. Do you really think I'm bringing you into a $500 million future?" Laura grabbed the table to keep from collapsing. "Kenneth, please. The kids, Maya and Jordan They need stability," Kenneth said coldly. "They need a parent who's actually present, not someone who's too tired to show up." Marcus cleared his throat. Mr. Dowson has been documenting evidence for 18 months. Every late pickup, every missed school event, every time you fell asleep in your car, every breakdown, all documented. The room spun. 18 months. While she was working herself to death for him, he was building a case to destroy her. Kenneth grabbed his keys. You can keep your memories, Laura. I'm keeping my future. And my children. The door closed, and Laura collapsed onto the floor beside her cold celebration dinner. Divorce papers scattered around her like broken promises, finally understanding that the man she'd sacrificed everything for had been planning her destruction all along. Day 3, Laura sat in a legal aid office with $247 in her checking account. Everything else was in Kenneth's name. The attorney, Janice Martinez, was kind but exhausted, her desk buried under 50 other cases just like Laura's. Janice flipped through Marcus Theft's filings, and her face fell. I'm sorry, Laura. We're completely outgunned. He has a team. I have 30 minutes and a paralegal. But I'm their mother, Laura whispered. I know, Janice said softly. But he has money. And in family court, money talks louder than love. Day 7. The courtroom felt like an execution chamber. Kenneth sat at the plaintiff's table in an immaculate suit, flanked by Marcus and 2 associate attorneys. Laura sat alone with Janice, wearing her only dress that didn't smell like hospital disinfectant. Kenneth testified first, calm, composed, successful. I run a thriving tech company. I have a stable home, flexible schedule, and the resources to provide excellent care for Maya and Jordan. Then Marcus presented Laura's work schedule blown up on a poster board. 3 jobs, 21 hours a day. This woman is physically incapable of caring for these children. The worst came when Simone took the stand. Laura's friend, her trusted child care provider. Simone wouldn't meet her eyes as Marcus played an audio recording. Laura's voice, broken and sobbing. I miss them so much, Simone. I barely see them anymore. I don't even know if they remember I'm their mother. Marcus paused the recording. This shows profound instability and an inability to manage her choices, Your Honor. Laura wanted to scream that she'd been crying because she was working to feed Kenneth's dream, but her voice wouldn't come. Day 12, discovery documents arrived. Laura opened the envelope with shaking hands and found 18 months of surveillance. A private investigator. Photographs of her sleeping in her car between shifts. Arriving 15 minutes late to pick up the kids. Missing Maya's school play because she was working. Jordan's soccer game she couldn't attend. Every sacrifice, every moment of exhaustion, turned into evidence of her failure. Day 14. Laura dug through old boxes searching for anything that could help. She found incorporation papers for Laura's Table, the catering business she'd registered years ago, then abandoned to work for Kenneth. But something was wrong. The signature wasn't hers. She searched Kenneth's company filings online, her hands trembling. There it was, partner companies, Laura's Table LLC, woman-owned, minority-certified small business. He'd used her business, forged her signature, used her credentials to win the diversity contract, without telling her, while destroying her in court. Day 21. Judge Raymond Carver delivered his ruling without hesitation. Full custody to Mr. Dowson. Ms. Dowson will have supervised visitation once per month for 2 hours. Laura's voice was barely a whisper. Your Honor, please. Ms. Dowson. The judge interrupted, his tone almost kind. Your work ethic is admirable, but your inability to prioritize your children's needs is deeply concerning. This court must act in the children's best interest. Laura's legs gave out. She collapsed in the courtroom, Janice catching her before she hit the floor. Through blurred vision, she saw Kenneth and Marcus shaking hands, smiling. 2 hours later, the eviction notice was taped to her door. 30 days to vacate. No children. No home. no future. Kenneth had taken everything, and the law had helped him do it. Day 30, Laura packed her life into garbage bags. Everything she owned fit in the trunk and back seat of her 12-year-old Honda. She had nowhere to go. Every shelter was full, and her credit was destroyed. She drove to a community center parking lot and watched families through the lit windows. Parents laughing with children. Normal people living normal lives. She slept in the driver's seat, her body folded awkwardly, waking every hour to the cold. Day 45, she developed a routine. Gym membership for showers. Food banks for meals. She worked her hospital shift, then lived in her car. Her supervisor noticed, but said nothing. Half the staff could tell she was barely surviving. Then came supervised visitation day. 1 hour with Maya and Jordan in a sterile room with a social worker watching. Maya ran to her, then stopped, uncertain. "Mommy." Laura dropped to her knees, pulling her daughter close. "Baby, I missed you so much." Maya pulled back, her 8-year-old face confused and hurt. "Daddy says you didn't want to live with us anymore. Is that true?" Laura's heart shattered. Court rules prohibited her from saying anything negative about Kenneth. "No, sweetheart. Mommy loves you more than." "Then why did you leave?" Maya's voice cracked. Jordan hung back, shy and distant. When Laura reached for him, he flinched. "Who's that?" he asked the social worker. "That's your mother, Jordan," the woman said gently. "Oh." He looked at Laura like she was a stranger. "Miss Rachel makes better pancakes." The hour ended. Maya cried when they left. Jordan didn't look back. Week 6, Laura sat in her car outside the community center again, staring at the bottle of sleeping pills in her hand. 30 pills. Enough. She was so tired. So broken. Her children didn't know her anymore. She had nothing left. She opened the bottle. A knock on her window made her jump. An older woman stood there, 60-something, silver hair, sharp eyes that missed nothing. She held 2 cups of coffee. "I know that look," the woman said through the glass. "I've seen it 100 times. Come inside." Laura wanted to refuse, but something in the woman's face, kind but firm, made her open the door. Inside, the woman led her to an office covered with photographs of women and children, framed newspaper clippings about judicial corruption, certificates, and awards. "I'm Regina Wallace," the woman said, handing Laura the coffee. "I was a family court judge for 15 years until I exposed a bribery scheme. They disbarred me, destroyed my career, took everything. So I started this center." Laura's hands shook around the warm cup. "Why are you helping me?" "Because I failed 100 women like you from that bench before I found my conscience." Regina reached for Laura's custody papers, scattered on the desk. She read for 2 minutes, her expression darkening. "This is fraud," Regina said flatly. "I can smell it from here. The timeline's too convenient. The evidence too perfectly documented. And this judge," she tapped Judge Carver's signature. "I know him. He's dirty." Laura's voice was hollow. "It doesn't matter. I lost. He has my children." Regina's eyes locked onto hers. "If you want to fight, I'll teach you how. But it won't be in family court. It'll be in federal court. And we're going to burn his entire empire to the ground." For the first time in weeks, Laura felt something other than despair. She felt rage. Week 8, Laura moved into a small room at the community center. In exchange for rent, she helped Regina with intake interviews, filed paperwork, and made coffee for women whose stories mirrored her own. But she was also learning, really learning, about contract law, fraud statutes, federal procurement regulations. Regina was a relentless teacher. The system failed you, so we go around the system. Family court is rigged. But federal court? That's where the real power lies. Laura spent hours researching Kenneth's company, Dowson Infrastructure Solutions. The $500 million contract was a federal diversity set-aside. legally required to include a woman-owned or minority-owned business partner. Kenneth's filing listed Laura's Table LLC as a 40% partner. Laura stared at the documents, her hands shaking. She'd never signed anything, never agreed to be a partner, never even knew he was using her business. He'd forged it all. Week 10, past midnight, an urgent knock rattled the center's front door. Laura and Regina exchanged glances. Domestic violence victims sometimes arrived in the dead of night. Regina opened the door. A man stood there, 50s, expensive suit wrinkled, hands trembling, eyes red like he'd been crying for days. "I need to speak with Laura Dowson." Laura stepped forward cautiously. "I'm Laura. My name is Darius Cole. I'm Kenneth's CFO." His voice cracked. "And I need to confess." Regina pulled him inside, locked the door. They sat in her office, Darius collapsing into a chair like his legs couldn't hold him anymore. "2 weeks ago, my daughter Jasmine was in a car accident," he began, his voice breaking. "She's 16. She's paralyzed from the waist down. I've been watching my wife care for her, watching Jasmine cry because she can't walk, can't dance, can't be the girl she was." He looked at Laura with devastated eyes. "And all I could think was, I have a daughter who needs her mother. And I helped a man take children from theirs." Laura's breath caught. Darius pulled a USB drive from his pocket and placed it on Regina's desk. Everything. All the fraud. The fake invoices, the shell companies, the money laundering, the kickbacks to government officials, the bribe to Judge Carver, $50,000 cash. Kenneth's affair with his business partner's wife. His plan to take your business credentials. All of it. Regina picked up the drive, her expression sharp. "Why now? Why are you doing this?" Darius's face crumpled. "Because every night I go home and my daughter asks me, 'Daddy, am I going to be okay?' And I say yes. But I'm a liar. I've been a liar for years. I helped Kenneth destroy innocent people for profit. I helped him steal from the government. I helped him take Laura's children." He looked at Laura, tears streaming down his face. "I have to be able to look my daughter in the eye. And I can't do that knowing what I've done. I can't teach her to be good when I've been evil." Laura's voice was barely a whisper. "You kept records of everything?" "Everything," Darius confirmed. "Emails, wire transfers, audio recordings, contracts." Kenneth's arrogant. He never thought anyone would turn on him. He kept it all. Regina plugged the USB into her computer. Her eyes widened as she scrolled through files. "This is enough to bring down his entire company. And Judge Carver. And half the contracting office." She looked at Laura. "This is it. This is how we destroy him." Laura, Regina, and Darius sat together in the small office as dawn broke, building the federal case that would change everything. Month 4, Laura sat in a federal building with an attorney Regina trusted, filing anonymous whistleblower complaints to the FBI, SEC, and Department of Justice. Everything was sealed, her identity protected. Darius's USB drive contained enough evidence to topple an empire. "This will take months," the attorney warned. "Federal investigations move slowly." "I have time," Laura said, "and I have patience." Meanwhile, she channeled her pain into purpose. Foundation First, a nonprofit providing free legal aid, emergency childcare, and job training for women escaping financial abuse. She registered it under her maiden name, Laura Martinez. Month 5, a $2 million donation appeared in Foundation First's account. Anonymous. Untraceable. The lawyer who facilitated it would only say, "The donor wishes to remain private. He believes deeply in your mission." The donor was James Whitmore, a tech billionaire whose identity would remain secret for now. Month 6, Kenneth's world began cracking. Federal agents subpoenaed his accountants. Vendors were questioned. Contracts audited. His office was tense, his staff whispering, Who's targeting us? Kenneth demanded at a board meeting. A competitor? A disgruntled employee? Darius sat silently at the table, his face neutral, his conscience finally clear. Month 7. Marcus Theft called Kenneth. I'm out. I'm a divorce lawyer, not a criminal defense attorney. Whatever's coming, you're on your own. That same week, Laura received the call she'd been praying for. Unsupervised visitation approved. 2 hours, twice a month. Maya and Jordan visited the community center, their faces confused. Why do you live here, Mommy? Maya asked, looking around at the donated furniture and other families in crisis. Laura knelt down, pulling them close. Mommy is helping people while our home gets ready. But I'm here, babies. I'm always here. Jordan hugged her tight. I missed you, Mommy. I missed you too, baby. Every single day. Month 8. Foundation first launched publicly with massive media coverage. Regina stood at the podium as director, announcing free legal representation for mothers fighting corrupt custody rulings. The press conference was covered by every major outlet. We're building a network to protect women and children from a system that's failed them, Regina declared. The story went viral. Donations poured in. Women called from across the country, desperate for help. Kenneth watched the news from his office, stress eating crackers, barely paying attention. He didn't recognize Regina. He didn't notice that Laura Martinez, listed as the founder, was the maiden name of the wife he'd destroyed. Month 10, 2 envelopes arrived on the same day in different locations. Laura, at the community center, opened hers. A congressional subpoena. The Committee on Government Contract Fraud was holding hearings. She was summoned to testify as anonymous whistleblower, Witness A. Kenneth, in his office, opened his. Also a congressional subpoena. He was ordered to testify about Dowson Infrastructure Solutions' diversity compliance practices. Neither knew the other would be there. That night, Laura sat with Regina in the quiet office. The older woman squeezed her hand. Are you ready? Laura looked at the subpoena, then at the photo on Regina's desk, Maya and Jordan from their last visit, smiling. This is it, Laura said, her voice steady and sure. This is where it ends. Everything he took from me, I'm taking back. In front of Congress. In front of the whole country. Regina smiled, fierce and proud. Then let's make sure they never forget what he did. Or what you survived. Laura nodded. He destroyed me in family court. I'll destroy him in federal court. And this time, the whole world will be watching. Laura arrived at Capitol Hill wearing a navy suit Regina had helped her buy. Her hands were steady as she signed in, was escorted to a secure waiting room, and told to wait for her cue. Anonymous witness. Witness A read the placard on the door. Through the walls, she could hear the hearing room filling. Voices, camera clicks, the shuffle of papers and feet. Inside the chamber, packed rows of senators sat elevated behind a curved desk. Media filled the back rows. C-SPAN cameras captured every angle. The room hummed with importance and power. Kenneth arrived like a celebrity, flanked by 3 new attorneys in matching suits. Marcus had refused to come. Kenneth wore a charcoal suit that cost more than Laura used to make in a month, his girlfriend Rachel clinging to his arm in a designer dress. Both of them smiling for photographers. The committee chair gavelled the room to order. This hearing will examine allegations of fraud in federal diversity contract programs. We'll hear first from Mr. Kenneth Dowson, CEO of Dowson Infrastructure Solutions. Kenneth took his seat at the witness table, confident and composed. He was sworn in, his hand on the Bible, his voice strong and clear. Mr. Dowson, a senator began. Your company was awarded a $500 million contract under diversity set-aside provisions. Can you explain your compliance? Kenneth smiled, charming. Of course, Senator. My company followed every regulation. We partnered with certified minority-owned and woman-owned businesses to ensure full compliance with federal diversity requirements. Can you name your diversity partner? Laura's Table LLC, owned by Laura Martinez. A woman-owned, minority-certified small business. The senator leaned forward. And what is your relationship with Ms. Martinez? Kenneth didn't hesitate. No personal relationship whatsoever. Strictly business partnership. She provided excellent consulting services, and we maintained professional boundaries throughout. The lie was now on record, on camera, broadcast live on C-SPAN. Kenneth continued for 20 minutes, polished, believable, denying any wrongdoing. His lawyers nodded approvingly. Rachel watched from the front row, adoring. Kenneth was texting on his phone, confident the worst was over, when the committee chair spoke again. We'll now hear from our whistleblower witness, who has requested to reveal her identity publicly. Kenneth barely glanced up, still typing. The chamber doors opened. Laura walked in. Every step was measured, deliberate. Her suit fit perfectly. Her hair was pulled back. Her face was calm. Kenneth looked up from his phone. The color drained from his face. His phone clattered onto the table. Is that? His lead attorney grabbed his arm, whispering urgently. Kenneth couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. His mouth opened and closed like a drowning man. Rachel's face went confused, then alarmed. The media noticed Kenneth's reaction. Cameras swung between him and Laura. Senators leaned forward, sensing blood in the water. Laura took her seat at the witness table, directly facing Kenneth. She adjusted the microphone. She looked him in the eyes, the same eyes that had once looked at her with disgust and contempt. Now those eyes were filled with panic. The committee chair spoke. Please state your name for the record. Laura's voice was clear, steady, and absolutely devastating. My name is Laura Dowson, and I'm here to tell you about the man who just committed perjury before this committee. Kenneth's lawyer tried to stand. Objection, Your Honor. This isn't a trial, counselor, the chair said sharply. Sit down. Ms. Dowson, you may proceed. Laura looked at Kenneth one more time, then began to speak the truth that would destroy him. Laura's voice filled the hearing room, calm and unwavering. Kenneth Dowson is not just a fraud. He's my ex-husband. And the business he claimed to have no personal relationship with? That was mine. Laura's Table, a catering business I registered 7 years ago and abandoned to work 3 jobs funding his company. She placed documents on the table. These are incorporation papers with forged signatures. Kenneth listed my business as a 40% partner in his company to secure diversity compliance, without my knowledge or consent, while he was using my credentials to win a $500 million contract. He was simultaneously taking my children from me in family court. The hearing room erupted. Senators leaned forward shouting questions. Media swarmed. Cameras flashed like lightning. Laura raised her hand for silence. I have evidence. She played audio. Kenneth's voice, cruel and clear. You were never going to be enough for the life I'm building. Look at you. Exhausted, broken, poor. I'd rather lose the kids than be seen with you. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Rachel stood abruptly and fled. Laura played more recordings, Simone's audio, but the full versions showing the daycare provider coaching Laura into emotional breakdowns. Say you miss them. Cry more. He needs this for court. Then came Darius's evidence. Fake invoices flashing on screens. Shell company wire transfers. Money laundering schemes detailed in spreadsheets. The most damning, emails between Kenneth and Judge Raymond Carver. Kenneth, the custody hearing is next week. Is our arrangement still in place? Judge Carver, the $50,000 cleared. I'll rule in your favor. She won't know what hit her. The chamber exploded. Senators stood. Media ran for phones. Kenneth's lawyers tried objecting, but the committee chair cut them off. This is congressional testimony, counselor. Different rules apply. Sit down. Kenneth couldn't sit. He stood, his face red, his voice rising to a shout. This is a setup. She's lying. She was a terrible mother. Mr. Dowson, sit down or you will be removed. She worked herself to death because she was incompetent. I built that company. She was just. A senator interrupted, voice sharp with disgust. Just the woman whose business credentials you stole? Just the woman you defrauded while bribing a judge to take her children? Kenneth opened his mouth to respond. The chamber doors opened. For federal marshals entered, moving with purpose toward Kenneth's table. Kenneth Dowson, you are under arrest for conspiracy to defraud the United States government, wire fraud, identity theft, tax evasion, bribery of a public official, and perjury before Congress. Kenneth backed away. No, you can't. This is. Marshals grabbed his arms, turning him around, snapping handcuffs around his wrists. Camera flashes lit the room like a strobe. The video would be viral within minutes. As they led him past Laura's table, Kenneth looked at her, really looked at her. For the first time since that night, he'd destroyed her world. Laura's face was calm. No smile. No triumph. Just quiet devastation in her voice. You should have just said thank you. Kenneth was dragged from the chamber, his expensive suit wrinkled, his power shattered, his empire collapsing live on national television. The committee chair gavelled for order. This committee has also issued an arrest warrant for Judge Raymond Carver of the family court. The screen cut to news footage. FBI agents entering Judge Carver's chambers. The judge's face going white as handcuffs clicked around his wrists. Laura finished her testimony, her voice steady. I didn't come here for revenge. I came here for justice. Not just for me, but for every woman whose sacrifice was weaponized against her. The senators stood. One by one, they rose in unprecedented acknowledgement, applause filling the chamber, not for spectacle, but for truth finally spoken. Laura stood, gathered her papers, and walked out of the hearing room. Free. 48 hours after the hearing, Laura's testimony had been viewed 50 million times. Every news cycle led with the same story. Wife destroys husband on live TV. Congressional testimony exposes shocking fraud. Kenneth's company stock crashed. Assets were frozen. Investors fled like rats from a sinking ship. Rachel posted on Instagram, I was deceived by a monster, and blocked Kenneth's number. Marcus Theft gave interviews claiming he had no knowledge of the fraud and was shocked by these revelations. Everyone who'd once stood beside Kenneth now scrambled to distance themselves from the wreckage. Week 1, an emergency custody hearing convened with a new judge. Laura's attorney presented the evidence, the bribed judge, the fraudulent original ruling, Kenneth's systematic destruction of a mother to steal her children. The judge didn't hesitate. Full custody restored to Laura Dowson effective immediately. Mr. Dowson's parental rights are suspended pending his criminal trial. Laura drove to Kenneth's mother's house where Maya and Jordan had been staying. The older woman answered the door, her face red from crying. I didn't know, she sobbed. Please forgive him. Please. Laura's voice was gentle but firm. That's between you and your son. But my children are coming home. Maya appeared in the doorway and saw her mother. She ran, screaming, Mommy. They said you'd come back. Jordan followed, hesitant, his small voice breaking. Are you staying this time? Laura dropped to her knees and pulled them both into her arms. Forever. I'm never leaving again. Never. They collapsed together on the front lawn, holding each other as Maya cried into Laura's shoulder. Daddy said you didn't want us. Miss Regina said that was a lie. The biggest lie ever told, Laura whispered, kissing their heads. I fought for you every single day. Every single day. Month 2, Foundation first received $50 million in donations. Laura opened centers in 5 states. She appeared on national news, wrote op-eds, became the face of family court reform. Women across the country saw themselves in her story. Month 4, Kenneth's trial began. Darius testified, his records irrefutable. Kenneth was convicted on all counts and sentenced to 22 years in federal prison. Month 6, Laura testified before Congress again, but this time on family court reform as the lead witness for the Family Court Integrity Act. She was no longer a victim seeking justice. She was a leader demanding change. In a prison common room, Kenneth watched her on the mounted television. An inmate passed by, saw the screen. "Damn, that's Laura Dowson, the one who took down that fraud contractor." Kenneth nodded silently. Man, her husband tried to destroy her after she worked 3 jobs for him. What kind of monster does that? Kenneth's voice was barely audible. "I did." The inmate stared at him, recognition dawning. "Wait, you're that guy?" Kenneth nodded, his eyes fixed on Laura's face. The inmate shook his head in disgust and walked away muttering, "You're not just in prison, man. You're in hell." One day, Laura received a letter requesting a meeting with James Whitmore, her anonymous donor. She arrived at his office, a glass tower with city views that stretched forever. James Whitmore was elderly, distinguished, with tears in his eyes when she entered. "Thank you for coming, Ms. Dowson. I need to tell you who I really am." He showed her a photograph, a young man with a woman and baby. "That's me 40 years ago. That's Kenneth's mother. That's Kenneth as an infant." Laura's breath caught. "You're Kenneth's father?" "I abandoned them, built my empire on her back, and left her with nothing. She died 10 years ago, bitter and alone. Kenneth became me. And when I saw what he did to you, I saw myself. I saw my sin." His voice broke. "I couldn't bring her back, but I could help you. You're everything I should have been. Someone who turns pain into purpose." Laura's eyes filled with tears. "You funded Foundation first to atone for what you did to Kenneth's mother, and to stop my son from becoming the legacy I created. I failed him as a father. But maybe I can honor his mother by helping women like you. She would be proud of what you did," Laura whispered. James shook his head. "No, she would be proud of what you did. I just wrote a check. You changed the world." 1 year later, the Laura Dowson Family Court Integrity Act passed Congress 89-11. Laura watched from the gallery with Regina, Darius and Jasmine, Maya, and Jordan on either side of her. Foundation first now operated in 32 states, helping 10,000 women reclaim their lives. Months later, Laura stood at a congressional podium being honored. The room erupted in applause, Regina wiping tears, Darius with Jasmine mouthing, "Thank you." James Whitmore in the back, Maya and Jordan in front holding a sign, "Our mom is a hero." In prison, Kenneth watched on television as Laura spoke. 7 years ago, I believed sacrifice was the highest form of love. But I learned that sacrifice without reciprocity isn't love. It's exploitation. Her voice grew stronger. "They tried to use my sacrifice as a weapon, but I documented everything. I found allies. And I learned that the best revenge isn't cruelty, it's truth." Laura looked directly into the camera. "You should have just said thank you."